Hi, this story is about Sidney Port, who was the founder of a company called Lawson Products back in 1952. And what he pioneered, most distributors can find little mini applications for his supply chain solution. What he did was he turned MRO dirt into gold, and it's your ability to go out and sell uptime opportunity to your customers also. And what Sidney pioneered was he would go out to manufacturing plants and he'd say, look, you got a lot of equipment around here, and if it goes down, what parts do you need at hand to fix it and keep it going really well? Think if, I remember I used to do a lot of presentations with overhead projectors, and they have a bright light that shines up and gets reflected up on the screen. And if that bulb burns out in the middle of my presentation with a room full of people, the cost of downtime is pretty high. So a next generation projector actually had a little knob you could just flip over and it would put a new light bulb in place. So it had a backup light bulb just there in case the light bulb went out. So that's the idea of, gee, what kind of little backup spark plugs, light bulbs, things you need, tape, duct tape to keep things running so you don't have downtime. So he would come out, his agents would come out, and they would do an audit, and they would design a custom unit of all these little goofy C items. And then their agent would come and top it off 1 to 2 times per year. But it was a vendor-managed inventory kind of thing. Their average margin percent for years is about 70%, but more importantly, their average minimum line item could be whatever they wanted to. They'd round it off to pack quantities. For all I know, they would try to say, well, let's have a minimum of $25 a pick, or from a margin dollar viewpoint, if we could have 10, 12, $14 per margin per pick. We're not, quote, even if that's a year's supply of a lot of little, gizmos, it's not a lot of dollars. We're not loading them up, and they'll never be stocked out. So the machine won't you don't have expensive downtime for lack of a little, goofy item. And so they were not focused on, let's try to get everything to turn 12 times a year. That's a distributor concept that does not necessarily work for bits and pieces of popular little things, paper clips and so forth, at the customer's premise. And they could also time the call frequency to basically shoot for an average sized order, average margin dollar per transaction size. And so they were the only ones doing this, and for years they grew fast and profitably. They didn't really have any imitators. They went public in 1970, and Sidney became very wealthy and a big philanthropist all around Chicago, and died a few years ago at 96. Now, eventually, Lawson Products saturated their niche. Competition came along and started mimicking what they're doing. A lot of manufacturing left the country and went to Asia, so it wasn't, manufacturing in America became less and less in a way. The machinery became more and more automated or technical, so there weren't as many parts and pieces you could stock, etc. And then next generation supply chain solutions came along. Integrated supply, a customer would say to some would-be supplier, look, I want you to take care of all the MRO, what Sidney's doing and the commodity stuff and everything else, and part of that is I want to outsource the internal replenishment labor that we have to you because you're focused and disciplined, you're going to do it better than our 3-shift people, turnover and don't care and so forth. And then once we have that going, then how do we automate it, take all the people and paper out as much as possible? And now you see a big wave of vending machines coming out. Now, I would point out that I'm sure that some of these vending machines are guilty of having people walk down the hall to get paper clips as needed, thinking that maybe they're going to steal them. So if you actually said, wait a minute, let's create a sort of an analysis grid here. What are items that are used less often and are very precious and people might want to take? So we have a shrinkage issue concern, as opposed to what are items that are massively popular, worth nothing, or very little, don't tie up a lot of inventory. People, frankly, don't want to steal them because they're ubiquitous. And let's make sure that they are right around the workers so they don't have to keep shuffling down the hall using their little, swipe card and poking buttons and getting in to buy their 2 paper clips just in time. And I'm sure that there are people guilty of saying, this is a top-down, black-white policy decision. We want to put everything in vending machines. So I don't know that those kind of issues aren't going on out there. But the moral of the story is down here that many of your customers have a number of small uptime element needs that with line item profit analytics you're going to find and say, why are we having rush orders or small orders on goofy little items? And the flip side of it is downtime for the customer, which is vastly bigger than just stocking some inventory just in case right next to where it might be needed. A variation of that is if you sell equipment, then what parts of the equipment go down, and you'll find these again if you go down to SKU reports and you look at the bottom of the SKU report and you look for small special orders. Say, well, why are we keep ordering $10 light bulbs and FedExing them? Well, the light bulb goes in this piece of equipment that we sell, and when the light bulb goes out, you can't use the equipment, so then it's a huge rush to get the light bulb. Well, why don't you say, here's the equipment, and we've put an extra light bulb taped on the back, and when you use this, call us and say, could you order another spare and have it there so we never have the downtime issue, but we don't have the rush cost issues also. So basically what you want to do is channel Sidney port and using LIPA analytics identify these little just-in-case on-site stocking solutions that are going to avoid both you and the customer big activity costs for no dollars, but big downtime costs for the customer down the road. End of the story. Thank you.